For 25 years, Kristin Smart's disappearance haunted California. But no one expected the trail to lead from a college dorm to the bright lights of Hollywood, and a secret only the stars could keep. It began as any other holiday on the Central Coast. Golden sunlight over San Luis Obispo, the scent of eucalyptus drifting across campus, and a sense of endless possibility. At Cal Poly, finals were over, campus lawns alive with students, and the future felt wide open. Among them was Kristin Smart, a tall, athletic 19-year-old with big dreams and a wide smile. Kristin had left Stockton seeking independence, challenge, and a fresh start. She was curious, loved the ocean, and was fiercely protective of those close to her. That Memorial Day weekend in 1996, Kristin joined friends for an off-campus party, a familiar ritual. She wore black shorts, left her wallet behind, and told her roommate she'd be back soon. As the night wore on, music echoed through dorms, laughter spilling onto patios. At 2 a.m., Kristin, a little unsteady, was last seen walking home with fellow freshman Paul Flores. Flores claimed he left her at an intersection, watched her walk away, then returned to his dorm. Kristin never made it back. Her bed was untouched, her belongings undisturbed. At first, her friends didn't panic. Students often crashed at friends' places. But when Kristin missed a call with her parents and skipped important plans, unease set in. By Sunday, worry tipped into fear. Stan and Denise Smart, her parents, called campus police and urged them to search her room. They were reassured. She'll turn up. She's just out with friends. But Denise felt something was wrong. Days passed before police officially declared Kristin missing, precious evidence vanishing with the fog. Authorities hesitated, treating the case like a party girl's misadventure. The media barely noticed, but the Smarts knew Kristin. They called daily, pleaded for action, and pressed to have her room searched. Only after she missed a final exam did the university acknowledge the situation was dire. Then the search began in earnest. Flyers with Kristin's face flooded San Luis Obispo. Search dogs combed the hills, volunteers and officers canvassed campus and construction sites. Campus radio stations aired bulletins, keeping hope alive. Yet there was no trace. Paul Flores quickly drew attention. Friends said he was overly attentive at the party, rarely leaving Kristin's side. His story about that night kept shifting. Sometimes he walked her partway, sometimes all the way, sometimes just a few steps. He showed up to interviews with a black eye he couldn't explain. Campus police searched his dorm, but not until days later. Any trace evidence was long gone. Kristin's story slowly reached beyond campus. Regional papers picked it up. True crime forums lit up with speculation and theories, but no real leads emerged. Tips trickled in, some wild, some chillingly believable, but nothing stuck. The investigation stalled. The Smart family refused to let go. They drove to San Luis Obispo, organized searches, spoke to anyone who would listen. Kristin's mother, Denise, became the face of the case, her grief and determination captured in every interview. Stan Smart worked with private investigators, desperate for answers. Then rumors surfaced. Hollywood was watching. A local journalist received a tip. The Smart case has friends in high places. Don't believe everything you hear. An anonymous donation hit the family's tip line, traced back to a Los Angeles address. Their private investigator began receiving calls from blocked numbers, sometimes disguised voices, sometimes just a simple, haunting message. Keep looking. She's not forgotten. Why would celebrities care about a missing student? Eventually, a connection appeared. A now famous actress, a Cal Poly alumna, quietly reached out to the Smarts, offering both financial support and encouragement. Her anonymity was guarded, but her involvement sparked a domino effect. Other Hollywood names, never publicized, discreetly donated to the search fund. Over time, the family's growing legal and investigative bills were partially covered by money flowing in from Beverly Hills and Bel Air. No questions asked. Through the late 90s, Kristin's case lingered in the public imagination but rarely made national news. Other disappearances and tragedies came and went, but her absence cast a shadow on campus and in the local press. Rumors spread. Was there a cover-up? Did someone powerful protect Flores? Was the university worried more about its reputation than justice? The Smart family pressed on, undeterred by official stonewalling. Kristin's memory lived through vigils, annual campus walks, and her parents' relentless advocacy. In private, Denise and Stan grieved, raged, and hoped. Their home filled with maps, notes, timelines, phone records. A shrine and war room rolled into one. Every tip was another potential breakthrough or another heartbreak. Still, they wouldn't give up. Years passed. Detectives rotated in and out. Some brought fresh perspective. Others faded into frustration. At one point, cadaver dogs alerted on a concrete slab in the Flores family's backyard. The slab was never fully excavated. Promising leads vanished into bureaucratic limbo. The family's tip line kept ringing. Sightings in Nevada, whispers from Canada. Each momentary hope ending in disappointment. Hollywood's involvement remained an enigma, sometimes a comfort, sometimes a source of anxiety. Who was helping? Who was hiding? Why did some witnesses clam up after talking to family friends in the industry? The years crawled by. The world changed, 9/11, the internet a new millennium, but the Smarts' world was frozen in May 1996. Kristin, forever 19, smiled from yellowing photos on a fridge and from local news stories. As the 20th anniversary approached, a new generation of detectives took the case. They brought modern tools, DNA forensics, digital records, satellite imagery, podcasting. In 2016, a podcast about Kristin's disappearance caught fire. It drew in true crime fans, generated tips, and reignited the investigation. Journalists revisited old witnesses. Detectives looked at evidence with new eyes, and the Smarts were thrust back into the spotlight. Hollywood's whispers grew louder. A lawyer representing an unnamed Los Angeles interested party offered to fund another forensic push. At the same time, a cryptic letter surfaced, left in a safe deposit box by a late Hollywood executive. The letter hinted at secrets, favors owed, and connections between someone in Kristin's orbit and the world behind the silver screen. On the surface, Kristin's case seemed colder than ever. But beneath, something shifted. Unseen forces moved. A network of power and secrets began to stir. What began as a campus tragedy was becoming a Hollywood obsession, and no one, not even the most well-intentioned, would escape untouched. As months became years, Kristin Smart's name faded from the headlines, but not from a home where her absence haunted every room. Denise and Stan Smart made a silent vow. They would never let Kristin become just another cold case. Publicly, they organized vigils, fundraisers, and spoke to any journalist who'd listen. Privately, every phone call or rumor became a pulse of hope and heartbreak. Beneath the surface, something stranger unfolded. Kristin's case caught the fascination of Hollywood's elite, actors, directors, and Cal Poly alumni now in powerful places. Their obsession wasn't public, but it rippled behind the scenes. The Smarts' legal bills were sometimes mysteriously covered. Investigators received cutting-edge forensics gear, paid for by charities with ties to Los Angeles. When the case stalled, an anonymous benefactor would nudge it back to life. Stan Smart suspected their search was bankrolled by someone with power, and perhaps their own motives. Not all help came free. Some supporters wanted the case solved, but their involvement hidden. Sometimes, help seemed more about steering the story than seeking the truth. Kristin's story became a whispered obsession at Hollywood parties. Some stars were genuinely moved. Others treated her story like urban legend, a reminder of the darkness beneath fame and glamour. Rumors surfaced of screenwriters weaving elements of her case into scripts. Through all this, the core mystery, what happened to Kristin, remained untouched. Meanwhile, the investigation in San Luis Obispo twisted in ways that defied logic. Leads vanished. Witnesses who once talked became unreachable. Evidence went missing or was misplaced in transfer. A major TV investigation was pulled just before airing, no explanation given. The Smart family's private investigator felt watched. Each time he got close, something pushed the case away from resolution. Paul Flores, the last to see Kristin, moved job to job, town to town, suspicion shadowing him. His mother's backyard, searched repeatedly, became a symbol of secrets. Cadaver dogs alerted there, but evidence was always just shy of what police needed. Neighbors whispered. Reporters speculated, but Paul denied all involvement, his story shifting with every new interview. By the 2000s, frustration for the Smarts grew. Legal delays became routine. Cal Poly's cooperation waned. Official investigations were half-hearted. Tips trickled in, most dead ends. Anonymous callers claimed to see Kristin in Vegas, in the Northwest. Each hope collapsed in disappointment. Still, Hollywood's invisible hand lingered. In 2006, the Smarts lawyer received an anonymous package, surveillance photos of Flores, some meeting with an unidentified, sharply dressed figure. The note read, "He's not as alone as he seems." The return address was a Beverly Hills penthouse, registered under a false name. In 2011, on the 15th anniversary, a national magazine feature caught the eye of a Hollywood documentary filmmaker. He offered the Smarts a deep dive series, bankrolled by an executive producer who refused to go public. A camera crew filmed interviews, stakeouts, and scenes with Kristin's friends. But when the series was ready, it vanished. Lawyers intervened, NDAs signed, and the Smarts were told, "Powerful people don't want this on air." Around then, a cryptic letter surfaced, found among the late producer's effects. It mentioned a favor for someone tied to the Central Coast case. Names were listed, some famous, some just initials, plus instructions to keep things quiet. The letter passed through several hands before it reached the Smarts, each transfer wrapped in secrecy. Suddenly, the local sheriff's office received fresh funding. Evidence processing sped up. A DA's investigator was appointed just for Kristin's case. But other barriers grew. Search warrants for Flores' property denied on technicalities. A witness recanted after landing a new job in L.A., and journalists found sources going silent or vanishing. This renewed interest brought both hope and unease to the Smarts. Each tip or media flare meant more attention, but also more scrutiny and anxiety. Anonymous calls offered help, warnings, and chilling reminders. Someone else was always listening. In 2016, Your Own Backyard, a podcast, reignited public rage and hope. Younger Hollywood voices joined in, funding more private investigation and digital searches. The podcast host received an anonymous flash drive, recorded calls between law enforcement, PIs, and a Hollywood figure, debating how to control the narrative around Kristin's case. The final twist. Deep inside a Los Angeles law office, an attorney opens a file of names. Some crossed out, some circled. The last is a famous actor, once thought distantly linked, now at the heart of the web. Proof, finally, that even those try to help could be entangled in the very mystery they hope to solve. As 2 decades of near misses and frustration close, one truth stands out. Kristin's case is no longer just a missing person search. It's a battle between justice and power, a story shaped as much by Hollywood's hidden halls as by the sunlit paths of Cal Poly. The real question now isn't only who took Kristin, but who spent years ensuring the truth stayed buried. The spring of 2021 brought with it a new sense of urgency, one last surge of hope for a family battered by decades of searching. For 25 years, Kristin Smart's disappearance had haunted the coast of California, but in hidden corners of Los Angeles, a handful of powerful people remained quietly invested in the outcome. They had sent money, lawyers, investigators, and more than once applied the kind of behind-the-scenes pressure only Hollywood could generate. Now, science was ready to do what rumors and tips never could. The sheriff's department, newly energized and suddenly well-funded, began another round of searches, this time with ground-penetrating radar and advanced DNA forensics. Anonymous donors paid for state-of-the-art lab work. Technicians sifted through dirt and concrete from the florist's backyard, processing evidence overlooked or impossible to test in the 90s. The break finally came when a new DNA method identified a microscopic trace in soil linked to Kristin. Suddenly, search warrants were granted. Paul Flores and his family were put under a microscope. Detectives followed the trail to old storage lockers and bank statements, phone logs, and digital devices. Quietly, lawyers on both sides prepared for a battle decades in the making. Throughout it all, the Smarts clung to hope, watching as the world that had moved on from Kristin's story suddenly shifted its focus back, every new headline a reopening of old wounds. Meanwhile, Hollywood's role, long hidden, began to leak into public view. Journalists noticed the same handful of names appearing on legal documents and foundation donations, all tied back to the entertainment industry. Producers discussed scripts about the case, but some studios shied away, fearing the secrets still tangled in the story. The podcast Your Own Backyard released new episodes featuring not just investigators, but anonymous Hollywood voices describing their decades-long fascination with Kristin's case, and how some had tried and failed to influence the outcome. In the shadows, a celebrity whistleblower stepped forward, not just a benefactor, but a key connection to both the Flores family and the Hollywood circles funding the search. The information provided was specific and chilling. Late-night confessions, veiled threats, financial transactions designed to keep witnesses silent. Suddenly, details that had seemed disconnected, the sudden withdrawal of a TV special, the abrupt ending of a documentary, the jobs and money that seemed to follow would-be witnesses, fit together in a new, unsettling light. April 2021. Law enforcement moved. Paul Flores was arrested, charged with Kristin's murder, as the world watched. Media trucks lined the courthouse steps. Forensics experts testified about soil and fibers. Detectives read emails and phone logs, and the Flores family's web of secrecy was pulled apart on the stand. The defense argued there was no body, no confession, no eyewitness. The prosecution countered with science, persistence, and the relentless pain of family that refused to stop searching. The trial revealed more than anyone expected. Emails between entertainment lawyers and publicists hinted at coordinated efforts to keep the story out of the press at certain moments, then amplified at others. Money that paid for search efforts had also, at times, paid for silence. One Hollywood name, previously lauded for advocacy, was forced to admit to making confidential payments to a witness who'd changed their story. The courtroom became a theater of secrets and revelation, the audience wider than anyone could have imagined. For Denise and Stan Smart, the trial was both agony and relief. They listened as every theory, every rumor, every accusation was aired in open court. When the guilty verdict was read, there was no joy, only the heavy knowledge that the story was over, but the pain would not end. Kristin's body had never been found, but justice had, at last, come for the man accused of taking her life. As reporters covered the verdict, the rest of the story unfolded in the background. Hollywood's obsession was dissected on talk shows and in magazine features. Documentaries and podcasts dug into the anonymous donors, the strange phone calls, the NDAs, and the conflicting motives of those who claimed to be seeking justice. Some had acted from compassion, some from guilt, some for publicity, and some, it seemed, to keep their own names clear of scandal. The public watched as former friends distanced themselves, old alliances fractured, and careers quietly ended. Yet not all answers surfaced. In Los Angeles, a lock safe held letters that might never be read. Witnesses who had waited decades for justice now slipped quietly back into anonymity. A half-finished screenplay about Kristin's case was left on a producer's desk, abandoned. And in the Smart home, Kristin's room remained untouched, her photos unchanged, her story finally, if imperfectly, closed. For the world, Kristin Smart's disappearance became a story about the power of persistence and the price of secrets. It was about what happens when the world's attention and its money shifts between justice and silence, between the need for answers and the fear of what the truth might cost. The Smarts were left with a verdict, the public with a warning, and Hollywood with a mirror held up to its own obsessions. And as the final credits rolled, one question lingered. In a culture obsessed with fame and mystery, who decides which stories get solved, and which secrets are too dangerous ever to bring to light?